The Philadelphia Inquirer has apologized for using an offensive headline. So now I'm going to show you this, and well, you can see it there, but here's a close up. Buildings matter too. Yeah, those living, breathing. Oh, they're buildings. They're not actually alive. Of course. So now let's get one thing straight, okay? Property is not worth as much as human lives. It's just not. If you're arguing if you're arguing from that perspective, like, oh no, property is worth more than humans, then you're a bad person. That's it. All right, merchandise also not worth as much as human lives. It's amazing that I have to point that out, that I actually have to say that, but here we are. This is what this is. Um, and look, this entire article seems like or at least the headline itself is tisk tisk to the protesters, right? You shouldn't be hurting those poor buildings because it hurts your cause. Of course. Well, okay. Well, here's the thing, right? The majority of the protests have been very peaceful, right? Now, that doesn't mean that there hasn't been vandalism, smashed windows, overturned police cars, fires, stores vandalized and looted. And yes, of course, we have seen that. I mean, honestly, it gets shown on the news literally 24/7, as opposed to the vast majority of the times where the protest is peaceful. We don't see that, but we see the smashed storefronts and we see that stuff. So now look, that said, does anybody like the looting? I mean, it sucks, right? But here's the thing about the companies, right? These big companies, for example, the Target, that I saw threads on social media of people saying, "Oh my God, that poor Target," right? Are you kidding me? They're a giant corporation, billions and billions of dollars a year. You don't think that they have insurance? Yeah, they have insurance. They have insurance in the merchandise. They have insurance in the building. They will rebuild, right? And I know the other argument, of course, is, but what about the people that work there, right? Well, once they rebuild, they're going to get their jobs back. Maybe we should have a social safety net support system to be able to take care of those people until they can get their jobs back. That would be nice. But anyway, that said, right? I also care about the small businesses that have been hit too. And I get it, right? And it would be awesome if we had a government that actually cared about helping those people recover from civil unrest or any other type of, fire or earthquake or whatever, right? Economic downturn. Be nice if we focused on that. Instead, our government tends to focus on giving trillions of dollars to rich people who don't need that money, and to wealthy corporations, which again, don't need that money. So understand, though, that's not the point. The buildings are going to be fine. Target's going to be okay, right? These protests are a result of people literally losing their lives, Black people especially. And MLK, Martin Luther King Jr., said that riots are the language of the unheard. And so they have been trying to bring attention to this through peaceful methods. I know I've been covering this for years and years. Peaceful protests in a lot of places it seems like it happens after every high profile shooting of a Black person. There is massive protest, but there's no change. There's no change. And the system still stays as brutal as it was before. So what do you expect when you continue to do peaceful protest and no one pays attention and there's no change? The protest is going to stop being peaceful. Okay. And so that's not to say that all of the damage is from the actual protesters as well. No. There are people that infiltrate protesters. There are right-wing groups. There's the Boogaloo Boys. There's white supremacist groups. And even undercover police officers doing the whole COINTELPRO thing, using that, and causing damage and riling up protesters as a tactic to justify heavy-handed police response. We don't necessarily know, but understand that does happen. So now comes the apology, right? After people spoke out. The newspaper's top editors had acknowledged the headline that appeared in its print edition was, quote, unacceptable and deeply offensive. We should not have printed it. We're sorry and regret that we did. While no comparison between Black lives and, of course, buildings was intended, intent is ultimately irrelevant. And this was the note signed by editor Gabriel Escobar, executive editor Stan Wishanowski, and managing editor Patrick Kirkstra. And they said an editor's attempt to capture a columnist's nuanced argument in a few words went horribly wrong, and the resulting hurt and anger are plain. And they also apologized to the newspaper's employees and its journalists. They have several journalists of color who expressed sadness, anger, and embarrassment in a 2-hour newsroom-wide meeting on Wednesday. They said, an enormous amount of pressure sits on the shoulders of Black and brown Inquirer journalists, and mistakes like this made by the publication they work for are profoundly demoralizing. We hear you, and will continue to listen as we work to improve. So there's the we hear you, right? Now, I'm not saying it's not a good apology. I actually think it is a pretty good apology. But then what are you going to do to back it up, right? And this gets down to the, of course, platitudes versus action. Sure, you know, platitudes and apologies are great, but what are you going to do to fix the situation, right? And so some of the journalists looked at that apology and said, yeah, look, it's good, but not good enough. In fact, you have people who decided that they were going to start calling in on Thursday, and they said this: things need to change. We call on the Inquirer to do better, to be better. We're tired of shouldering the burden of dragging this 200-year-old institution, kicking and screaming, into a more equitable age. We're tired of being told of the progress that the company has made and being served platitudes about diversity and inclusion when we raise our concerns. We're tired of seeing our words and photos twisted to fit a narrative that does not reflect our reality. We're tired of being told to show both sides of issues here. There are no two sides of. Things need to change. Now that is strong. Saying, no. Your platitudes mean nothing to us. We need real change. We're tired of this. And I totally agree with them. Things do need to change, especially when it comes to journalism. Especially when I've mentioned before that the major focus has been on the riots and looting versus the peaceful protests in all around the country, in every single state. You've had peaceful protests. There's a peaceful protest in my town, right? Small town. Several hundred people showed up, 100% peaceful. Did they get any coverage? Not really. But if you throw a brick, every single camera in a 100-mile radius is going to be right on you. It's going to be talking about that for days. And understand that this is a problem in journalism specifically, right? We're stuck in an age of journalism where, unfortunately, it's, you've heard it before. If it bleeds, it leads. Meaning we're going to pick up and we're going to cover the outrageous stuff the most. That's going to get us the most eyeballs. That's going to get us the most advertising revenue. And so that's what we're going to go with. We're not going to talk about these peaceful protests. We're going to focus on the destruction, the broken storefronts. And so understand that this is a problem with all of journalism is facing, not just the Philadelphia Inquirer. And of course, that kind of focus on that kind of coverage does these social movements wrong. And so, what we need to do is we need to have journalism that does better. And you're not going to get it from a large corporation, certainly, that has advertisers and, of course, that pay most of the bills. And you're going to have a strong, independent journalistic movement that actually cares about covering everything and not being neutral to avoid, angering advertisers. where, oh, this the Republicans say this, Democrats say that, they say this, they say that, and it's in the middle. No, neutrality isn't objectivity. You should absolutely be objective, but that doesn't mean being neutral. And that is the big problem here with a lot of these journalistic outlets. And I love that these workers are saying, no, enough with that. Enough with the platitudes. Show what's really going on, or else we're not going to come back to work. We can't do that. So I think that this is a good, hopefully something comes out of this. And this, helps that outlet and other outlets be more responsible. But I don't think we're going to get massive amounts of change until we have a massive media revolution. And, independent media is working to do that. But as always, we need your help to be able to do that. We don't have the resources of CNN or MSNBC or even the Philadelphia Inquirer. And so, independent media is the future, is what we need to go forward in this country, but it needs help. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a patreon.com/TYTNation set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.